While driving a motorboat around the Twin Lakes, Nancy and her friend Helen got caught in a dangerous storm. Luckily, they are rescued by another teenage girl in a rowboat. They soon learn that their rescuer is Laura Pendleton, whose mother has recently passed away. Laura has come to meet up with her new guardians, but something isn't quite right about them. Nancy investigates the situation, and soon she stumbles upon a shocking surprise in the cellar of a bungalow.
But my dad did find a note on their back porch telling the milkman to discontinue deliveries. And I was like, why was your dad on their back porch?
Seriously? What a creep.
My dad was sort of snooping around and...
He's an amateur detective of himself.
He was like, new couple next door, I'm going to do some peeking. You never know what kind of couple they are.
They probably don't close their window blinds.
Oh, they will.
It's 2018 and everyone gets a podcast. Mine is the Hardy Boys Drink Book. Today we're doing an extra special episode, the Nancy Drew Drink Book, number 3, The Bungalow Mystery, featuring Casey Dallavalle. Normally we would have one of our favorite local bartenders mix us up a custom cocktail to go along with the drink, but today we're doing things a little bit differently. I'm going to be talking to Joshua Rapp, who's the Brewhouse Manager at Avery Brewing Company. We're going to learn what goes into making a great beer, how to taste a bad one, and we're all going to drink like Kaisers. In this extra special mystery, help a lonely orphan girl adjust to her new life, ditch Helen about a third of the way through the book, and make everybody uncomfortable with your overly close relationship with your father in the Nancy Drew Drink Book number 3, The Bungalow Mystery, featuring Casey Dallavalle. Hey, all you lady sleuths out there, welcome to a very special episode of the podcast. This is the Nancy Drew Drink Book podcast number 3, featuring Casey Dallavalle. That's how you say it, yours.
It is, yeah.
Okay, great.
It means of the valley.
Of the valley.
Yeah,
Dallavalle.
yeah.
Great. So, Casey, you are a good friend of mine, and you are an expert in Nancy Drew. Tell me a little bit of your history of Nancy Drew, because you have a sort of a computer perspective.
I do, yes. So I started with the Nancy Drew series via computer.
Okay.
So there's this website called herinteractiveonline.com or whatever. But they
I really hope that's the whole website is herinteractiveonline.com or / or whatever. That's the main page. Otherwise, you get a DNS error.
Maybe we should send it to them.
Yeah, great.
But yeah, so they make like Nancy Drew games. And when I was, I don't know, like maybe in 5th grade, I played my first one.
Okay.
And they're super fun. I would highly recommend it to anyone. I still play them.
So you still play them?
I do.
Okay. As like my mom plays a lot of like computer solitaire, where she like zones out for, it seems to be in sort of a meditative state. Mm-hmm. Is that what, or are you actually experiencing the adventure?
No, they are really hard.
Oh.
So it's really interesting because they started when I was really young, and they actually have grown a lot since then. But they have this fan base that has kind of like continued with them.
Okay.
Just like me. And so they actually make these games, and they're really hard. They're like 2 different levels. You can do junior mode or you can do master mode.
Oh my
God. It's really hard when you get to the master level.
So at this point, they're like, oh, the people who play this level will know that if there's a clock in the room, you check the clock.
Yeah.
You know, and so you okay.
That, and they've also started to like add like internet jokes.
Oh.
Into it. They're kind of becoming self-aware.
Like a little meme.
I can't think of an example right now, but there have been a few times when, like, since I've been a part of this community, like, we've been making jokes about these things, and then suddenly in the next game it'll be like, oh, Nancy did this, and you're like, oh my god.
They were reading the forums.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's, so, can you think of, like, the most recent one you played, or one that really stood out in your mind? Okay, so what do you do in the game? It's a point-and-click sort of mystery, telltale.
Yeah, it's like point and navigation click.
Okay.
And so it's really interesting. So the last one I played was, I can't remember the name, but it was about, you go to like a Nordic island.
Okay.
And there's like this pirate ship.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
And there's a mystery concerning the pirate ship. And so there are all these people that are related to the mystery, right? So there's like, because the pirate ship is part of a museum, and so you go to the museum, and there's your like museum collections person, and you like actually go and have dialogue with them. You can ask them questions. Depending on which questions you ask, you get different answers. And there's usually about like 5 or 6 NPCs like that.
Okay.
So you are like interviewing people and like trying to get kind of clues from them, but then also you're like going and exploring the town, you're exploring the pirate ship. Usually there's like a fun like transportation thing you can do where you like go on a snowmobile or drive around like River Heights or something.
Cool. Yeah. I would love a game where I could drive around River Heights. Can you pick all of Nancy Drew's outfits down to the most minute detail? I am surprised sometimes reading these books that it doesn't tell me what color of underwear she is wearing and how detailed. They'll describe her socks in this book.
So that's actually the really cool thing about these games is you never, ever see Nancy Drew.
You are Nancy Drew.
Because you are in her, yep. So that's you badass. Never, like, see... The only things you ever see are her hands, maybe. But otherwise, yeah, no clothing, nothing else.
Okay, great. Nancy Drew, no clothing, everybody. That's the computer game. All right, well, before we get too far into it, I want to talk a little bit about the Nancy Drew series. The Nancy Drew books were originally written in the late 1920s by Carolyn Keene, and Keene is better known for her pioneering work in the field of entomology. And so she, breakthrough in that field, then she wrote all these mystery series. They were rewritten in the 1960s to be a little more PC, to give Nancy more money, to make her a little more domestic than she was in the original book, and she is hella domestic.
Hella.
She takes massive breaks from the mystery to, like, set the table in this book.
Yeah. I feel like she sort of has a reason, but...
Yeah. Well, no, she's being good. She's being a good person.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions? Had you read many of these books before, or were you all games all the time?
No, I wasn't all games all the time. So I did read, like, for a little while. I read them very fervently. It was a long time ago. I don't remember when. And I remember really liking them. I remember being like, I don't know who the culprit is. And then
And now you're a grown-up.
So... I'm a grown-up.
Now, I was a little disappointed with this book. We talked about that. The book starts on a very high note. Well, I mean, a low note for the characters, but a high note for us as readers. And then the opening illustration, it looks like
right?
Nancy Drew is keeping a man tied up in her basement for some reason.
Yeah.
And that she's, she looks concerned. Like, in my mind, she was saying something along the lines of, like, I'm so sorry this got so out of hand. I promise I'll let you go as soon as I can. You just can't tell anybody. Oh, my God, what am I going to do? Oh, my God, oh, my God. And then she closes the door again before he even has a chance to ask for food. And, and he's just down there and Hannah's upstairs on her crutches. So
Mr. Drew comes in just like, hey, y'all, what's going on?
Now, it seems like there are some regular Nancy Drew characters that are missing from this adventure.
Yes, there is.
There's no Bess. There's no George.
No Ned. What happened to Ned?
So here's
Ned
the
is
thing.
her, like, love of her fucking life.
Yeah.
Can I swear?
Yeah, you can swear. We've decided. So none of those characters have shown up yet.
No.
We're in the third Nancy Drew book, and there is no of her core friends. She has her friend Helen.
I guess.
Helen Cornig. And when the book starts, we'll jump right into it. Helen and Nancy are just out on a boat for no reason, right? They rented a motorboat.
When I was initially thinking about this, I thought they were, like, heading to an island, and I was like, oh, it makes sense that you would, like, rent a boat and go to the island.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's, like, absolutely not the case.
No, they just had a boat for the day. But it's 3 pages, and it moves at Hardy Boys speed, which is the only time this happens in the novel.
Agreed. Yes.
They're on a boat.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, it's a little cloudy. Oh, my God, it's storming. Oh, my God, we're going to die. And within moments...
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
They are standing on the boat. There is a big wave. There is no more boat. And now they're just in the water. Helen, she asks Helen, like, are there life preservers? And Helen just says, nope, no life preservers. And she's like, are there raincoats? And she's like, I'll go look. And I'm like, you didn't go look for the life preservers.
I know.
But whatever. They have raincoats.
I like that, like, apparently these, like, cloud bursts, which is this, like, incredibly inferno storm that almost sank them, is, like, a regular occurrence.
Sure.
And that, these boats that I'm assuming are rented out.
Yeah, they're not, they can't withstand a cloud burst.
No, but they should, because it happens all the time.
why are there no life preservers on these rental boats? That seems like a massive insurance problem.
Yeah.
But then they're
and
like...
then they, freaking just don't care. They,
No.
return the boat, and they're like, oh, hey!
The boat got
thanks.
destroyed. That's actually not the first time that's happened in one of these books.
So I've heard.
Yes. So, yeah, I just kept writing. Like, I thought it was, it's going to be choppy, but it's going to be fine. But I just kept writing, Christ, Jesus, oh my God. As, like, there's lightning. In the crash.
I wrote, whoever rented them these boats is a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. These boats are not they're not seaworthy.
No.
But so her friend Helen falls into the water
Mm-hmm.
and hits her arms?
Apparently. Like, as she's, like, falling out of the boat, like, she scrapes both of her arms.
Anyway, they're paralyzed. She can't move her arms anymore.
No.
I do want to throw this out there, and I know there are some large lakes, but this is a lake. They're at a...
Yeah. I thought it was an ocean at the start. I was
Right.
like, that makes sense.
No, they're on the middle of a lake, and the waves are so high they completely capsized, and we're, like...
Yeah, it was crazy.
Let's see, the motorboat sinks to the bottom of the
Yeah,
lake on page 6, and I was like, just wow.
And this is the first Mary Sue moment that I found.
Where she's an excellent swimmer.
She's an excellent swimmer, yeah.
Excellent swimmer.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Thank the Lord.
My arms feel numb, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. How can your arms feel numb?
That's Helen. not
Yeah,
Nancy.
Nancy's
Yeah,
Nancy's
like,
smarter than to say
in
that.
her zone, man.
So she tows her to shore, Aqua Girl style, and then she says, like, hold your breath when you see a wave coming. What is causing these massive swells on this little lake?
Yeah, I think that
Is this
whole
like a
thing
Great
is
Lake?
just
Yeah.
completely fictional.
And then, in the middle of this torrential rainstorm, she's like, I think I heard somebody calling out.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're hallucinating. Ignore
100%.
it.
100%.
Yeah, that's stress. But
Yeah.
no, it's a slender auburn-haired girl of about 16
Yep.
who gets them on her rowboat, right?
Yeah. That's like
Okay.
a whole shebang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just Helen not refusing to move her arms.
Yeah.
You refer to them as
'Cause
Helen's useless arms.
arms, yeah.
And you're like,
Oh, I wrote here a new check.
yes, Helen, the armless girl. But she's fine as soon as they get on the boat. She's like, I guess they're feeling better.
Yeah.
But then they almost run one of the weird things that Laura Pendleton, the girl who rescues them, says. She says, I'm Nancy Drew. They're still in the storm
Right.
at this point. She says, I'm Nancy Drew. And the girl says, I read in a newspaper about one of the mysteries you solved. I may need your help someday soon, Nancy. And I'm like, one, good recall. Like, I don't remember anything I read.
Do you even read the newspaper anymore?
I read it on my phone. But yeah, so I read the newspaper. I wouldn't remember if they were like, local teenage girl solves clock mystery.
No.
I know I wouldn't
Not at
remember.
all.
And also, they probably wouldn't have published her name.
Oh, no, she's of age. She's
That's
18.
true. She's
Yeah,
18.
Yeah.
That comes up later. So, but then they get on this rowboat to save them, and then they're about to crash into a boulder.
Oh,
But
yeah.
then they're not.
That's like the second time they're about to crash, right? First time it was a log.
Yep.
Because of course.
And now a
And
boulder.
then the rocks, yeah.
And then they get onto the shore,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, Helen, how are your arms? And she's like, better now. And you're like, oh,
I'm all
really?
fine. I just didn't want to help.
Yeah. As soon as we're out of danger,
Mhm.
she just didn't. She was so lazy she was willing to drown if Nancy didn't swim her to shore.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially.
Well, I bet she was actually more like a parasite, being like, if I pretend that I can't do anything, Nancy will help.
Do you
and
think
I'll
that
get
her
her.
that her engagement is real?
That was an interesting.
It was a whole plot
Yeah,
point
it
in an
was.
earlier book.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, of her like wanting to get engaged to this guy that she had just
Oh.
met,
Oh.
and then now she is.
Helen, don't do it.
Don't do it. I
Don't
think
do
it's all made up now.
You
I
think
think
so?
that she's just trying to get attention and seem better than Nancy. It's hard to seem better than Nancy Drew.
I mean, she does know everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's all storming. They pull up they find a little bungalow.
I also like that before before they actually get on shore, Nancy, like, helps Laura with oaring,
Paddles, yeah.
paddling. And, like, earlier she was, like, about to drown because she was so tired.
Yeah, but no, she got her second wind there.
Yeah, I guess so.
The adrenaline of towing her friend's limp-armed body.
Plus 25 to HP, right?
Yes, absolutely. So they go to the bungalow, the eponymous bungalow from the title.
They break in.
They break it.
Yeah.
They don't even hesitate to, like, kick in the door.
They're like, we're cold, even though they're, like, probably right next to a town.
Yeah,
you know?
Go to the
'Cause
town.
This is a small island, we'd learn.
I don't think any amount... Well, I don't know. No, I wouldn't break into a person's cabin. Because I feel like I would assume that they would be in there.
Yeah.
And then I'd break in the door and they'd be like, oh my god.
Yeah. And this is like the 50s, right? So they could probably like shoot you on sight, yeah.
It's 2018, they probably could shoot me on sight and be fine. Yeah, it's not
fair.
Yeah. So they break into this bungalow. It's pretty much abandoned, but on the second floor there's like cots, clothes,
a
refrigerator. It's stocked with food.
Stove.
And rather than just like do what I would do in this situation, which is probably even if I did break in, not touch anything and be like, I'm just going to sit here until I'm dry and the rain stops, and then write a note being like, so sorry about your door. But no, they just make hot cocoa and...
Oh, no, they have a full-on naked party.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they, like, take all their clothes off.
They get out of...
They make hot chocolate.
They get themselves out of their wet clothes.
Oh, yeah.
They beanie, and then... Because I wrote it down there. I wrote, oh, yeah, at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Helen and Nancy agreed. Within a short time, the three girls had taken off their wet clothing and were wrapped in blankets.
Yup.
Laura had turned on one burner of the stove and made hot chocolate. And I was like, oh, you 18 to 16-year-old girls.
Nothing brings together. Because it's kind of funny how, like, quickly they bond.
Yes.
You know, but, like, nothing brings together...
Girls.
Like 18-year-old girls than a naked party.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, what more? We've all seen the internet. Yeah. In a previous, I think it was Helen and Nancy, they were in a rainstorm, and then they, like, quickly showered, and it was like, Helen helped Nancy wash her hair. And I was like, oh, Together they did. That's not the most weird thing that happens in this book, though. Not that there's anything wrong with three teenage girls, having a naked party and
having fun.
Drinking hot chocolate. But then Helen gives a bunch of TMI about her fiance. Mm-hmm. She's like, I'm meeting my aunt. She's going to help me design my dress for my marriage to Jim Archer. And I imagine she like looked around the room to see if anyone knew his name.
Yeah, totally.
And Nancy was like, I know him because you've introduced us. But he's in
and
Europe
like,
now.
What?
He's in Europe on business for the oil company.
Ooh.
And I thought they were going to get married in the last book, when they were like, when he gets back to America, and I feel like he's maybe fake.
Potentially.
And then...
But that also could be how they get Helen out.
That's true.
Because, like, then Bess and George come in, who are...
Which would be great.
1 million times better.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, Helen's pretty useless in this. Helen tells Laura, the girl who saved them, that Nancy lives with her father, a lawyer, and Hannah Gruen, their housekeeper. And then Laura is like, I'm the saddest girl in the world.
Seriously.
She says, I am an orphan, which is a great way to start any sentence. And then she says, my father was in a boat accident nearly 6 years ago. And I was like, where'd he rent that boat? But then what I think, and I was like, Helen is a jerk. Laura tells this whole story about how she's got these new guardians and how she's like, because she's only 16. Mm-hmm. So these distant relatives of her mom, or this Mr. Aborn and his wife, are going to adopt her. Right. They're going to be her guardian, and they're going to pay the tuition on the boarding school I attend, or something. And Helen is like, well, then everything is settled. You should be happy.
Yeah.
And Laura's like, but my mom just died, and my dad's been dead for years.
And she's like so uncertain about, I mean, she's just meeting these new people.
She's never met the people who are going to be your new parents.
She's going to be living with. Yeah, totally.
I was pretty sure one of them was going to turn out to be Count Olaf.
Oh my gosh. Best mashup ever.
Right? Like, I was like, oh my god. Is this an orphan with a fortune? Is the guy who shows up is like, I am your guardian. Is he going to have a tattoo of an eye on his ankle?
Does Mr. Aborn have a tattoo? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So they leave a nice note saying, 3 grateful girls. And I hope with a really detailed note about how like we were so wet, so we took off our clothes sweeten the deal a little bit. They're not going to leave pictures, but I mean, at least let the
Just so you
person who
know
got
what
the
went
notes be
on in
like,
here.
they're like, great. Then again, it could be like a preacher's house. Then again, maybe a preacher would be like, great. I don't know.
You never know.
I don't judge. They go back to the person, Mr. Franklin, they rented the boat from.
Yep.
And they were like, oh, I'm so sorry.
We
and
have
he's like,
insurance.
don't worry about it. It happens all the time. And I was like, oh, it's
This happens with the accidents. We have insurance. And
Yeah.
then the girls are like, huh, even without life jackets?
Yeah.
Of course they didn't say that.
No.
But yeah.
But they should have. Yeah.
should've.
Like, the insurance company is never going to pay that out. Then this scraggly, bleached, blonde woman
Yeah.
who's mean, right?
Swaggered into the office.
And what does she want? Help?
I just like her wet bleached hair clung to her head in an unbecoming fashion. Like immediately
Bad person.
evil. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally unbecoming. Just right away.
Let's see. They basically, I love this. Helen says, some people don't deserve a helping hand. Kind of a bitch move, Helen.
You speaking from experience?
Yeah, she's like, some people are better left to their own devices. And then they take a bath and get a change of clothes.
Probably together.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bathing. The boys in Hardy Boys don't bathe nearly as much, never together. That I know about. And then they told Laura to call them, right, if she wants.
Mm-hmm. Does calling here mean actually just like saying hi, or actually
Or
calling?
like getting a hold of the operator, having their operator get a hold of. I don't know what she means. But let's see. They describe. Laura Pendleton shows up.
She does show up. Yeah.
And she's wearing a becoming pink cotton dress.
Oh yeah.
Every single article of clothing is detailed. It's amazing.
That doesn't happen in the Hardy Boys.
In the Hardy Boys, if they tell you what color sweater a person is wearing, it's an important plot point that you need to remember later. Oh, guy in the red sweater. Yeah. Nope. But they don't want you to think.
I mean, this was the 1950s, right?
Yes.
So.
I love later when she wears a green dress to camouflage herself in the woods. I'm like, okay, well, you're trying.
You got it, girl.
Let's see. So it turns out that Laura just met her new adoptive parent, and it's that bitchy lady from the hotel who was all unbecoming. Yes, and this big clue where I'm like, oh, these are fake. These people are fake. Is that she's like, oh, and she told me that my mother, Mary, had spoiled me.
Right.
And that I was going to have to tow the market home. And then they're like, well, I don't know. Like, maybe she's strict. And then she was like, no, but my mother's name isn't Mary. It's Marie.
I know. I have a huge
dun, dun, dun. Yeah, absolutely. But then Helen keeps taking her side. Did you notice that?
Mrs. Aborn?
Yeah, because Helen is like, they're like, she was very rude to the people down in the hotel. And Helen is like, but don't forget, it's no fun to have car trouble on a bad night. It's apt to make anyone cross. And you're like, no, she like screamed at the service people.
Oh, yeah, she did. She went all out.
So then, apparently, I can't even remember what the hell happens. They invite Laura to second breakfast. I remember that.
They do like a bunch of stuff.
They do a bunch of...
They like do tennis.
Oh!
They like
So
have
this is
breakfast.
one thing... Yeah, they have a whole morning of events.
The time, I feel like, in Nancy Drew is like wibbly wobbly.
It really is. Yeah, you can cram a lot into a day. The one thing that I noticed is that they're like, remember that girl we met, Marty Malone? Let's call Marty Malone and we can have a foursome on the tennis court. I kind of want to... There's no way to read this to make it make sense, which sucks. But, like, Marty Malone picks them up, or, like, they meet up with her. Mm-hmm. Laura and Nancy are partners, and Helen and Marty are partners. And then they're like, well, we should go. And they never mention Marty Malone again. Like, I don't know if they dropped her off, or if she, like, ran to the restroom and they just left.
Yeah.
But I kept expecting later that the main criminal was going to turn out to be Marty Malone. And she's like, you freaking ditched me. And, like, I met you before that.
Make you pay.
I met you before that Laura girl, and we were supposed to become summertime camp friends. But you decided Laura was your summertime camp friend. So and
Nancy was like, oh, but she's an orphan.
She's an orphan, and your name's Marty. But, like, I'm not joking, the entire rest of the book, no. I imagine Marty Malone looking around every corner and, like, following Nancy through the woods, trying to figure out, like, what everybody else was doing, and just, like,
having I wanted to be your best friend.
I wanted to be your best friend, Nancy Drew. Let's
yeah,
see.
she definitely doesn't ever come up. She's just a way for them to play
To
tennis.
play tennis with four of them.
Yeah,
And I'm
for
like,
a while.
the writer couldn't think of another activity.
No.
And then couldn't think of a better reason for a fourth person to be there. And this happens a lot in this book.
Oh, this is the second time that the Mary Sue is coming up.
Okay.
You're a terrific player, Nancy, Laura exclaims. So
Right.
she's, she's been trained in tennis.
Yes. Private lessons. Oh, that's what Laura says. At boarding school, mother insisted.
Right.
So Laura's also very good.
Yeah.
Marty Malone, not
as good
worth
as Nancy,
mentioning.
Yeah.
Not as good as Nancy. No. Basically, Laura's like, I'm going to go live with my new guardians. Helen's aunt is going to show up. Oh, Nancy, is this when Nancy gets the call?
Yeah.
From Helen, or from Hannah?
Well, Helen's aunt says it to her, right?
Oh, okay. They do learn about whose bungalow that is, though.
Yeah.
He had rented it the week before, because everyone tells everybody everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
they
they contact the realtor in this lakeside town to know who owns that bungalow, and he tells them that he just rented it to a Mrs. Frank Marshall from Pittsburgh. Yeah, I don't know why any of that had to be in the book. It didn't.
No.
It did.
Apparently, a note wasn't enough, and Nancy had to do it.
No, and then Nancy says that she didn't sign the note that she left, and I was like, you did sign it. You signed it 3 grateful girls.
Right.
You said, it said specifically,
Thank you
she signed
for
it.
your hospitality that you did
3
not give us.
Grateful girls. Yeah, no, we broke in and stole your stuff. Thanks, smiley face, winky face. And then they almost get run down by a fancy car.
A black foreign car. That's important. That comes up.
A black foreign
many,
car
many times.
that when people see it, they become suspicious
Yeah.
because it's foreign.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. It's just, they're up here a lot, but it doesn't seem like a lot happens. They're going to tea rooms.
I like how Helen says, close association with you, Nancy Drew, is making me more observant. Like, she's like Watson.
Yeah.
Holmes, you know?
Right.
Yep.
But Helen seems just a little dim in a lot of this. Whatever.
Yep.
She doesn't have stuff as figured out as Nancy does, but she's older than Nancy, I think. She's engaged.
I think she's about the same age. People
So-
got engaged that.
Yes, like right out of high school.
Yeah.
From Helen's Aunt June arrives, and then Helen,
Yep.
Aunt June, she tells her that, your Mrs. Grew and Hannah, Nancy's housekeeper,
Mm-hmm.
sprained her ankle or something, or broke a...
Yep.
But she's going to be off her feet. And Nancy, rather than being like, oh, poor Hannah, well, I'm having fun with my friends, is like, I have to go home right away and make sure that someone's there to make her lunch and dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just, like, way too nice. Then again, I guess
she's too nice of a person, right?
she is. Yeah, she's like
Yeah.
you
I
could
felt
manipulate
like it
her
felt-
and so much hotel crap.
Oh, she was like, but before I leave, I just have to meet Mr. and Mrs. Aborn.
Oh, right. She wants to
Yeah,
meet
yeah.
them. And she does meet them and they seem fine.
They seem like fine but suspicious.
They say
Right.
that Mr. Aborn's face was square, but his small brown eyes were shifty, and I was like, that's Count Olaf for sure. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's Neil Patrick Harris and or Jim Carrey.
One of the two for sure. Yeah, definitely.
They decide they
And
say
then
they're
they're
gonna.
like putting in like weird points, like, oh, this poor child, and oh, she has not a single thing of money to her name.
Yeah, they keep making it very clear to everyone that they interact with, which I think is they're really dumb criminals. They seem to be flying by the seat of their pants.
Oh yeah.
But they keep talking about how Laura's mother actually was destitute and didn't have any money, so they were doing her a huge favor by adopting her.
Yep.
But we have plenty of money; it doesn't matter, so it's going to be fine. We don't need. And I was like, oh no, that ruins your whole plan, because if their whole thing is they're going to steal Laura's fortune, then they shouldn't tell people we have plenty of money and it's fine. What they should tell people is, we are destitute, and to take her in, we need to cash in some of her fortune to take care of her. But they go about it all wrong. They're like, she's broke. No, we're broke. No, we're fine. But she's rich, and we need her money. But she's broke, and like they don't seem to have a plan. I don't know.
No.
Laura goes with them. Nancy goes home, right?
Yep.
Yes, and it's very clear that Laura's fake guardians are trying to steal her
100%.
money.
Right away.
Right
away.
I thought maybe no, I keep doing that. I keep expecting, okay, this is so obvious, it must be a red herring. Or like one of them's a good guy and one of them's a bad guy. Nope. Nope. I should stop
No,
expecting
no.
that.
I like literally at every point where they give you like a clue into the mystery, you feel that, you know?
Yeah, you're like
we're gonna come across some other things soon that's like that can't be right. That's too obvious.
Yeah.
But it's all
but
good.
it's all real.
Yeah.
Oh, they take Nancy decides she's going to drive home, right? To
yes, in her convertible.
in her
Let me
convertible
mention
in a
at
storm.
the start. Yeah.
Oh yes, in her navy blue convertible.
Yep.
But she gets caught in a storm as she is wont to do, I guess.
Well, first she gets caught in a storm, right?
Yes.
And then she gets detoured.
Right, by like construction danger.
Nobody knows.
Okay.
It's like doesn't ever come into
They're
play
like-
because like construction doesn't last more than a day, right?
Yeah, well, you'd hope that. So then she takes a detour, and there's
Into this like incredibly like off-roading road.
in her 50s navy blue convertible.
Yeah, and she's just like going so fast
Whamble,
in a
whamble,
storm,
whamble,
just
whamble.
like.
But then there's a splintering, ripping noise, and a pine tree falls
Yeah.
right in front of her car, but doesn't hit her car.
No, she brakes, you know, because
Yeah.
convertibles have great brakes.
On the mud, in
On
the
mud,
woods.
yeah.
And then she says, like, she tries to move the tree, and then she says,
Isn't that hilarious?
it's too heavy, so she says, too bad I'm not twins.
I like how she thinks that she can move it right away. Like, come on, Nancy.
It's a big
Use
old
your
tree.
logic
Yeah.
that you have stored, you know, to solve these mysteries.
Then again, okay, as a dumb man, if a tree fell in front of my car, and I was like, oh, that thing's real big, the first thing I'd try to do is move it out of the way, and then be like, oh no. No, I can't move that. That's hundreds of pounds. What's wrong with me? It's like when your car is parallel parked just a little bit wrong, and some part of your brain is like, I'll just grab the bumper and lift it up and slide it into... And you're
I
like,
don't think anybody has ever had that thought.
Well, people haven't been drunk enough then,
I
because
guess so.
when you're drunk enough, you're like, I can do it.
I bet this book would be 100 times better if Nancy was just pissed off her pants the whole time.
That would be great. She would definitely try to get more out of more situations by like trying to make a move on a guy and then throwing up on his shoes. You know, like a lot of like, hey, maybe I could I'm so sorry. And then it happens. It's out.
But everyone would be madly in love with her anyway.
They'd be like, it's fine. And they like wipe her mouth off. And maybe a little bit of her blouse, her perfectly pristine banana yellow blouse skirt combo. So Nancy's rescued by a 14-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's-
Who doesn't ever get out of the car.
No, she doesn't get out of the car.
Because girls can't do that.
No. She pulls up and she's like, my brother will help you. And then Jim, her brother,
Jim.
gets out of... Which I thought Jim was going to be the, like, potential romantic lead of it. Because he's, like, driving the car.
He's like handsome.
He's handsome.
And saves her.
Saves her. No, not Jim.
No.
He's not the one.
Nor is it Ned.
Nor is it Ned. Ned, sir, not appearing in this film.
No.
Anyway, Jim tells her that they've known the Aborns for years, the people who have adopted Laura,
Yeah.
and that they bought this new house a month ago, and that they mentioned that Laura was coming to visit them, but they had to go take an extensive trip first. This kid who lives next door to these people has too much information, because I keep thinking of, like, if I was at my parents' house and their neighbors were like, hey, so funny story, my distant relative had a terrible accident. It's a sad thing. But anyway, their niece is going to come live with us. But before she does, we have to go take a trip. I'd be like, shut up. Don't talk to me anymore. I don't know who you are. Like, I wouldn't be cataloging all of it later for a mystery. I would probably just, like, walk silently backwards into the house while they were talking and shut the door. Like,
Especially for like an 18-year-old boy,
Yeah,
they would
like,
probably
oh
stand
my
and be
God.
like, "I'm gonna go smoke something."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, I didn't realize there was anybody over there. Anyway, but they're all keen to meet Laura because the Aborns think she must be tops.
Mm-hmm. I also like how Nancy is like, "Oh, is Mrs. Aborn a blonde-haired woman, rather small and slight?" And they're like, "Yeah, totally."
I mean, small, maybe. Blonde, I don't remember.
Like dirty blonde or
like brunette, red brunette. I just wrote, different person. When they were like, sure she is, that lady. Anyway, yeah, they're all excited because Laura's tops. She inferred from the Donald's remarks that the man and his wife were very acceptable people. White.
Yeah, white.
Yeah, I think that's what that means. They're like, would you describe them as acceptable people? Yes.
Like white and rich.
White and rich, yeah, acceptable.
Definitely.
Very acceptable. Let's see. So then she goes back to Hannah. Hannah's like, you shouldn't have come home, but then also I have a bunch of stuff I need you to do.
Mm-hmm. She was like, I can't believe you almost died. And Nancy was like, me too.
Yeah. And she's like, where's my dad? And they're like, to the state capital. Which state? Yeah, they said that he's going to the state capital, but they won't say which state.
Where is River Heights?
A lot of people think Illinois.
I could see that.
Yeah, Great Lakes region.
Oh, I like that, right away. It's like, Mr. Drew wants you to help him investigate an embezzlement case. And
he's an attorney. He's not a private investigator. He's an attorney.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But, okay, what upsets me about this is that she's like, your dad needs your help investigating this embezzlement case. And I'm like, he's not an investigator. He's an attorney. He's not a private detective. Also, I feel like if an attorney had his daughter help him with a case without any sort of she doesn't have any licenses or anything, I feel like it's maybe it's a little bit of malpractice.
I get that, and
unless
actually their relationship is one of the best things about this book. I feel like.
Is it the best thing?
One of the best things. Because he has so much faith in her.
He does.
And I and he believes, there are a couple things that he could not believe her on.
Sure. And
he's 100% against his daughter, which is very
Okay, can I just say, do you feel like they kiss too much?
The dad and her?
Yeah.
They kiss in the book?
They kiss enough times that at one point I wrote, please stop it.
I literally did not see that.
Okay, well now I'm going to point out every kiss from now on. Because it got to the point where I was like, stop. Don't. You don't keep having to kiss each other.
Maybe that's why, because her father is secretly in love with her.
Yeah, he's like, I trust you implicitly. And she's like, okay, Dad. And he's like, no, seriously, with anything. She's like, okay. Kiss me again. It's very weird.
Do you think that, he's shagging Hannah?
No, I don't. I think he's shagging his secretary. Later, I'll talk about why. So anyway, Nancy does this whole super domestic stuff. She makes a casserole, and then she sets 2 wooden trays with doily napkins and silver. Then, after placing bread and butter on each, Nancy poured 2 glasses of milk. Lastly, she made a crisp salad of lettuce and tomatoes and marinated it in a tangy French dressing. And I was like, was that to teach 8-year-old girls how to make a nice entree? They
were like, you can't be smart and not domestic.
No, you have
to be domestic, period.
Yeah, you can be smart.
Yeah.
But the first one is required.
Yeah,
it's
and if you're not smart, just go for domestic.
Go for domestic.
Yeah,
it's fine. And if you can't be either, we have no place for you in this society. It's a sad thing. So, let's see.
No, you have to get married to somebody who's rich in Europe.
Yeah, you have to get married to Jim Army or whatever that guy's name was, who is an oil tycoon in Europe. It sounds made up. He sounds made up. Let's see. They're like, oh, Laura should come stay with us, mostly because they think that she's now at an abusive house.
Mm-hmm. Not really, though, right?
No, like a grumpy house.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a difference.
They're good people, but they're
if you were ever growing up and one of your friends was being hit, that was a much bigger deal than if their parents were always grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes to try to talk to Carson Drew. Oh no, she calls the hotel that he's staying at.
Right.
Hotels in this universe operate differently than in reality, or our universe, in which you can call a hotel and ask them for any information and they will give it to you.
Seriously.
She calls and she's like, can I speak to Carson Drew? And they're like, no, he checked out this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then you think they're going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, who is this? You gotta ask. You never know who's hunting this attorney. But so she's like, okay, well, I guess hopefully nothing bad happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the middle of the night when Nancy's asleep, she hears like a window.
A creaky window in the ground
being
floor
opened.
library
I was like, it's
being
Carson.
opened.
I was like, it's Carson, right?
I didn't get it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
She thought somebody was breaking in.
In fact, like when he said they said it was Carson, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, why didn't he turn on a light?
Like he
Or ring
left
the
with
doorbell.
enough time to tell, like to leave a message.
Yeah,
yeah.
There's
it
no
was
reason
so
for him to
dumb.
break into the house. It almost seems like he was trying to sneak out, or like I don't know what was going on. But anyway, he gets
He was
caught.
like, I'm gonna relive my 18-year-old life.
Yeah, he's
Sneak
like, oh,
into my house.
he's had a lot to drink, and he's like, oh, you'll be fun. Well, like he got mad earlier, and like while he was telling a story, he accidentally like threw his keys, and was like, oh no, and then couldn't find him, and was like, I'll just break into my house. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I think there's one of those uncomfortable moments that I was talking about. Okay, here we go. Okay. Dad! Cried Nancy in disbelief as color flooded back into her face. Is it really you? Of course, said Carson Drew, a tall, distinguished-looking man who right now seemed a little sheepish. He placed his briefcase he was carrying on a table, then walked toward Nancy with arms outstretched. His daughter rushed into them and gave Mr. Drew a loving kiss. And I was like,
She also says, you're the best-looking burglar I've ever seen.
Yeah, she hits on him.
Yeah, she does.
Right away. And then she's like, oh God, the police. And I forgot she had called the police, because when I was reading, I was like, did a neighbor see them through the window and call the police? You're like, I just saw Carson Drew kiss his daughter on the mouth. I'm calling the police. And if the police don't do anything about it, I'm calling the newspaper.
I'm sure by now the neighbors have been like, "Oh shit, something's going on here," and
I know.
they've
called the cops, and the cops have been like, we're not going over there. Look, as long as it's in their own home, we don't feel comfortable.
He's an attorney.
He's an attorney. He works for the DA, and it gets weirder, folks. But then they go to sleep, I assume separately, and then Hannah wakes them in the morning. Hannah refuses to obey doctor's orders and remain on her crutches.
Yeah.
Or
that's what servants do.
Yeah, but the fact that the doctor's like, you sprained your ankle, 3 days bed rest. I'm like, no, that's bad for you. You're going to get blood clots and stuff. Don't do bed rest.
Yeah,
but then they eat pancakes and sausage.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? Oh, she tells... Wait a second. Did she get that phone call? No, that's later.
No, that's later. It was nice to see the family household, you know?
How their unit, how the family unit works.
Because in the games, you never get to see that. You're always at the crime scene or the mystery right away, you know. So
you never get to
cool.
set the table and make a nice vinaigrette.
No.
Let's see. Nice yellow club chair. I love all the aesthetic stuff. They're when they describe
chairs.
his office.
Mm-hmm.
Carson Drew has a great office. Oh, he tells her that he has been hired to investigate a case, which is not his job and is not what he does. But he has been hired to investigate a case in which a bunch of bearer bonds were stolen from a bank.
Yep.
So they're bonds that just say basically payable to bearer.
Yep.
If you have the bond, you can cash it. And they don't know who stole them. And they went to an attorney, a private attorney, and they were like, "You're on the case."
Because that's what private attorneys do, yeah.
And he took the case.
Yep.
Which is weird.
Maybe he's so secret that he goes, of the title attorney, but he's actually a private detective.
That seems like a good way to get all of your cases thrown out, and then all of the private detective cases that you consulted on thrown out. Yeah, where they're like, it turns out that the guy who helped us with this case was the attorney that prosecuted the criminals. And then on the other end, they're like, hey, it turns out that this private detective we've been using is actually an attorney. Yeah, all of that seems bad. You can't do that.
Maybe in the 50s you could.
Maybe you could. Well, here's a 50s thing right here. So they're like, we want you to investigate all of the... They want Nancy Drew to go interview all the people who had their bearer bonds stolen, right?
Yep.
But not to tell them. These people clearly don't know that they've had their bearer bonds stolen from the bank. And then she's like, have you checked on everybody who works at the bank? And he's like, oh, yeah, definitely. I spoke to all the employees. 2 of them I couldn't speak to because they were on vacation. And when they get back from vacation, we'll have to interview them. And I was like, well, that's suspicious. And she's like, couldn't you find out where they went? And they were like, no, there's no way to know. And I was like, because there's no Instagram. Like, you can't just literally check social media and be like, they are in Spain. And they are totally in Spain. Oh my God, look at these pictures. They just have to accept that they're gone. When they get back, we'll interview them. Sounds like an exciting case, Dad.
Said Nancy.
What can I do to help?
In reply, Mr. Drew gave Nancy a slip of paper with 4 names on it and their corresponding River Heights addresses. They were Mrs. William Farley, Mr. Herbert Brown, Mrs. John Stewart, Mr. Stephen Dowd. None of the names was familiar to the young detective.
These are the local people whose securities are missing.
Mr. Drew said.
Think of some reason to meet these people.
He directed.
See what kinds of homes they have, and try to get an insight into their characters. This is a very vague assignment, but I feel you may find out something incriminating about one of them. You see, we have to be very careful not to arouse suspicion in a case of this type. I'll do my best.
Nancy assured him.
I love that. He's like, this is super vague, but like, go there and do a thing, and then maybe one of them's a criminal.
I feel like he expects one of them to be a criminal,
right?
Honestly. And he's like, I'm going to give my 18-year-old daughter...
Try to get into their house by whatever means necessary. Oh, and then Nancy gets a phone call.
Yeah, this is the big deal.
This is a big deal. She gets a phone call. It's one of those classic, hello, Nancy? Nancy Drew? And she's like, this is Nancy speaking. And she's like, and there's a crash. And then Nancy's like, who is this?
Mm-hmm.
Silence. The call had been cut off. And then Mr. Drew is like, who was it? And she's like, oh, this is what happened.
And she's like, oh, like, normally when people hang up, they, like, give me a call again. I'm just gonna wait for another call.
She's like, maybe something happened and they dropped the phone.
Deal.
And then she's like, wait a second. Usually people would call and be like, hey, I know I screamed and dropped the phone. No big deal. I saw a mouse. But that doesn't happen. And then Mr. Drew is like, asks who it was, and she tells him what happened. And he says, you didn't recognize the voice. And she's like, no, I can't call back. And someone is in trouble. I just know it. And I can't, here I am helpless, and I can't do a thing. It's maddening. And I love her father's response. It certainly is. Well, dear, I must run down to the office.
Presently, he left the house.
And then he just straight up leaves. And then Nancy
She's
forgets.
Like, chill, whatevs.
She just completely forgets about the phone call.
Yeah.
She's like, anyway, I got stuff to do.
I like that she doesn't recognize the caller. You know, even though she, like, literally just spoke to this lady,
person.
Like,
yeah,
yesterday.
it's clearly Laura. But I just love that she makes no effort to, like, call the operator and try to figure...
Yeah, right?
She doesn't do any of the detectives.
Caller ID doesn't exist, but there's gotta be a way. Be like, hey, this person just called me, and I'm pretty sure she's in danger. Can you freaking connect to me?
Can the police do... No. She just forgets immediately that it happened at all. And then she's like, this is a good day as any to start Dad's investigation. So
I literally wrote whatever, I guess.
Yeah, whatever. Screaming person on the phone. Classic prank. So Nancy puts on a 2-piece navy blue dress, which makes her look old.
With tiny pearl earrings. She dusted her nose slightly.
But it makes her look older than her 18 years. And I was like, 18 years is old enough to party. Like, don't worry about looking older than that.
But maybe not to talk about your bank bond.
That's true. But then she doesn't even use, like, working for the bank as a cover. She's like, I work for this charity that's building a youth rec center. I'll just ask people to volunteer at the rec center. Mm-hmm. Then I won't have to lie. And I was like, but you could lie. Like, you broke into somebody's house earlier.
Nancy. Don't be a Mary Sue.
So what, she goes...
She goes to an old lady first, right?
Yeah, and can I just say, this woman, she's in a nice house. Mm-hmm. She has the greenest, most alert eyes Nancy's ever seen.
Yep.
Which is a weird, like, little, way too narrative, like, literary touch. She's not very well-to-do, but she has a nice home. Mm-hmm. And she has a Duncan Fife rocking chair, which I don't know what that is, but hearing something that's like either designer or brand specific in a Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew book is unheard of.
Really?
Like, people don't drink Coca-Cola. They drink soda.
Oh.
Did you ever read anything by the author John Bellairs?
No.
So he wrote in the 1960s and 70s a children's fiction that was like children's gothic fiction that was really spooky. And it was all about mysteries and magic and stuff like that. And a lot of it feels a bit like the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew. But the thing that makes John Bellairs seem so real is that a kid will prize his Babe Ruth baseball card. and will like have a favorite type of Bazooka Joe gum and drink Coca-Cola and go see a movie that you recognize. He goes and, he'll see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, like, it's the real world stuff that makes it feel like it's actually a thing that happened.
Okay.
None of that in this book. So to hear somebody be like, she sat in a Duncan Fife rocker chair, was a weird choice. And also,
probably, like, it's probably like a, because this woman is pretty wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it old? Like I don't know what that is.
I just feel like it's like if they were gonna name drop, it'd be like very notable, probably like high
society.
Yeah, totally.
I can't think of anything that's high society anymore. Tigers. Yeah, like if you have one of your own.
Yeah.
You're either. Then again, if you own a tiger, you are either high class or you are complete trash.
Probably both.
You're like a really rich trash person who thinks it's okay to own a tiger.
Definitely.
Yeah, Nancy never tells this woman because she's like, "Would you be interested in writing a check for the rec center as like as her cover for interviewing her?" And the woman's like, "Okay, I'm very broke and on a limited income, but fine." And at no point does Nancy tell her.
Do good.
But at no point when she's writing Nancy this check, does Nancy say, "Oh, and just so you know, your bearer bonds were stolen from the bank. You're penniless."
You can't, right?
You can't. I guess
she
because
can't
of the
because
trial.
Mr. Drew said, "Hey, I'm investigating in this case right now. They're paying. The bank is like paying
their insurance. We have insurance.
Yeah. So,
who cares?
Yeah.
But yeah, nobody tells her she's been robbed. No. Did she go talk to another person? Oh no, that's right, Don Cameron. Good old Don Cameron.
He just like us driving by, probably driving throughout the entire
looking
time.
For Nancy Drew.
Yeah, definitely.
Because so it turns out that Don Cameron is a guy who took Nancy Drew to like junior prom or something.
Which is like a big deal.
Sure.
She's probably like the most sought after lady in River Heights.
That's what I was thinking, is that Nancy Drew seems to like date lots of guys. And, like, it doesn't seem to be a big deal. Ned becomes her main beau later on, but she seems to have no problem going on lots of dates. And
Apparently.
I'm like, I don't think Don's gotten much sleep since junior prom. Like, Don's been, like driving by your house a lot and, like, trying to play it cool.
Yeah, totally. Like, later he takes Laura out, you know, and he's, like, really cool about it, but, like, not internally.
Not internally. Yeah. So Yeah, I was like, Nancy went, it says here, Nancy had in fact gone to the spring prom with the tall black-haired boy, and I wrote, ooh.
And the only reason she decides to, like, go out with him is because he's going to one of the suspects.
Yeah, so she has a list of suspects that she's supposed to go talk to, and he's like, hey, do you want to come to this barbecue for my sister and my brother-in-law, whose name is Billy Bent? I don't know why they came up with that name and had to put it in the book. Bill Bent, yeah. And anyway, they're like, you should come to this barbecue party with me. It's being given in the honor of my sister and my brother-in-law. They're about to get married. And he keeps calling him my brother-in-law to be. And they're like, it's at Herbert Brown's estate. And she's like, Herbert Brown? That's a good excuse to get into his house. I'll totally go. And I'm like, poor frickin' Don.
Yeah, he's being used.
He was so psyched to get a second date, and now he realizes, I bet junior prom was a mystery thing, too. Yeah, she said, Nancy could barely conceal her excitement, although she didn't like the idea of spying on a host. Because it is the suspect's house. And
I bet Dawn was like, oh, she's excited to hang out with me.
Look how excited she is. She's so psyched. And I was like, I wrote real mixed signals here for Dawn. He's like, no, she got visibly excited, guys.
Oh, yeah.
When I was like, do you want to come to this? She was like psyched. She was a little bouncy.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I didn't know she was so into me. It's going to go great. I think it's finally going to happen. It doesn't happen.
Not even close.
So she comes home and Hannah's like up on her feet and she's like, you're supposed to be resting. You're a fine patient. And then she's like, I feel better keeping busy. And then Nancy's like, okay, fine. I don't care at all. But Helen sends her a postcard.
Yes.
Is that a real postcard?
What would get there in a day? Literally, she came back from that town.
And left it in the mailbox.
Yesterday, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, when did she mail it?
Mail doesn't work like that. It'd have to be last night. And even then, it takes a couple days for the post office to get you.
Aunt June and I have decided to take a week's automobile trip up north. We will return to River Heights. Good. Plan to stop and see Laura on our way. Hope Hannah is better. Yeah, and that's the whole chapter. Oh, wait. Oh, no, that's what it is. Hannah's like, what are you looking at, Nancy? And Nancy's scared white, and we're like, what is it going to be?
Oh, yeah.
And
her normally rosy complexion, because she's always a rose.
This is so weird. She's like, oh, seeing this postcard gave me a flashback to a phone call I had this morning. She's like, what was the phone call? She's like, a girl screamed, and then it hung up. And I was like, you just forgot about that?
Like, you forgot about Laura Pembleton, who you had a naked party with?
Yeah, you never forget Yankee parties.
No.
But anyway, she forgot, and she's like, oh my god, I think it was Laura. And I was like, yeah, no crap. This suddenly is what, like, sparks her memory that this terrorizing phone call happened.
Like, duh.
They try to call the Aborns, the people who adopted Laura, and their phones have been disconnected. So she tries to get a hold of the Donnells, the people who helped her move that fallen tree.
How would she find them? Like, did they
call
give
the
her,
operator?
Yeah, to be like, Jim Donnell, and
they'll be like,
know?
okay, we've got 3 Donnells in the region, and they'll be like, the one who helped me move a tree, and they'll be like, connecting you now, miss. And I don't know, I bet it's like Google. Oh, she talks to the Donnells, and she's like, do you remember who I am? And they're like, yes. Of course.
You're like that dumb bitch that tried to move a tree by herself.
And she's like, oh, right, and you're the dumb bitch that wouldn't get out of the car. Great. Now we both know who each other are. So they're like, she's like, are the Aborns home? Is there a problem with the phones? And they're like, nope, they left.
No, she's like, do they specifically have a foreign make of car? And they're like, no.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think
But my dad did find a note on their back porch telling the milkman to discontinue deliveries. And I was like, why was your dad on their back porch?
Seriously? What a creep.
My dad was sort of snooping around and...
he's an amateur detective of himself.
He was like, new couple next door. I'm going to do some peeking. You never know what kind of couple they are.
They probably don't close their window blinds.
Oh, they will. All it takes is one time looking up from a good time to see me standing in the window. And you shut those windows every time. You're like, he saw everything. So she's talking to Kathy. And this is the sentence that made me laugh really hard. I don't know why. She says... I'm sure we'll hear from them in a few days. If we do, we'll call you, Nancy. And she said, fine, said the young detective. Remember me to Jim. Goodbye. And I went, what? Did you misspeak? Remember me to Jim? Remind Jim that I exist. Thanks. And then Hannah is like, I was thinking about it. And that call you got this morning, it might not have been from Laura. You know a lot of people, Nancy. And I was like, how many people do I know that
Nancy's
would call me
so popular.
and say help and then scream and then drop the phone? Well, Nancy.
That's relating to this mystery.
Yeah.
Because it has to.
Nothing that happens in this time period can have anything not to do with the mystery.
Exactly.
It would be super confusing.
It's like synchronous actions.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
She goes to Carson Drew's office. She meets Miss Hanson, the secretary, that I believe.
Say how pretty she is.
Yes, she says,
so pretty.
My, how pretty you look, Nancy, said the efficient young woman who had been with Carson Drew for the past 5 years. And I was like, oh!
You're so right!
Gotta find those subtexts.
Totally.
Let's see, do they kiss each other again? Probably not. Not in his office.
I like how she was like, hey, that lady who gave me money was a very fine character.
Yeah, the woman who wrote me a check.
Yeah.
Very good. Beyond reproach. And then she's like, oh, and I'm going to a barbecue party. And Mr. Herbert Brown's like, better than I expected. All of their dialogue comes off, and maybe I've been reading too much Raymond Chandler, but it comes off flirty to me, and I don't like it. I never feel like Fenton Hardy is flirting with his sons. So she tells her dad
There's something odd about this.
Yes, there's something odd about all of this, Nancy. She tells her dad about all the new stuff with the Laura Pendleton case. Like, she called me and screamed and hung up, and then you left and didn't care.
I'm pretty sure it's Laura.
The phone-
and I'm just going to go,
Laura.
like, chill and find some other suspects.
And he's like, that's odd. Anyway.
Oh, she does kiss him again.
Where?
She kissed her father goodbye, and I wished him a successful trip.
Stop kissing your dad. I wrote, stop kissing your dad. And then he's like, and then he says, I'll call you every night at 8 as she's leaving. Like, be home at 8. I don't want you not at home. On the way down in the elevator, Nancy asked Hank, the operator, if he knew where Hilo Street was located. And I was like, oh yeah, elevator operators. Remember them?
Ooh.
She finds out she's going to go drive over to Mrs. John Stewart's place, who is the third suspect on her list. Mrs. John Stewart. She's married to the Black Green Lantern. And, or maybe the guy who hosted that show. Anyway,
Do you mean The Daily Show?
Yes. Nancy scanned the buildings and found that one was the largest on the street. It was ultra-modern in design. And I was like, wait, let's stop. What does ultra-modern mean? Ultra-modern in which decade? And, like...
That's fair.
Does ultra-modern in the 20s mean Art Deco? And in the 60s, does it mean Art Deco? Like, is ultra-modern gonna look...
I think that it was so far in advance that it's like the blocks we see nowadays.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, that it was that far.
Yeah, or it's like an inverted
'Cause ultra
pyramid
is
with some sort of like light-based levitation devices that raise you from
it's like
one
in
floor
The
to
Sims
the
when
other.
you can like build a house and then get rid of the stilts and it like,
Yeah,
floats.
and it's just it's like that. It's ultra-modern, postmodern. So she takes the elevator up. When she gets to the front door, I kind of like this whole bit. A woman is like, oh, you must be the dog walker, and then hands her a bunch of poodles. And is like, goodbye,
Yeah.
and then closes the door, and I was like, yeah, hooray!
And then it says that the elevator was self-operated because she like just didn't freaking go up one that wasn't self-operated.
Because she wants to
goes
put that
down
elevator
one.
operator out of business. They hand her the dogs, they slam the door.
Yep.
And then, rather than just stealing the dogs and blackmailing this clearly rich person to get them back, like holding them ransom, she just rings the doorbell again and is like, I'm not the dog walker, which I was like, oh my God, Nancy, you had this person's dog. They have a gold collar, she's rich.
Yeah.
Like,
I also like that this was like right now the book is kind of like losing steam a little bit,
Yeah.
And they're like, surprise!
Now Nancy's got dogs. And then the next
Crazy!
chapter, a new person punched in and was like, no, she does not. And so she gives the dogs back. And the woman is pretty...
And it's not the person that gave her the dogs. Like, the
No.
person who gave her the dogs was a
housekeeper.
maid. Yeah. And then the person who answered the door after she, like, immediately ran the doorbell,
is
right?
Mrs. Stewart. And she tells her that, like, I'm afraid we'll have to talk another time. I have an afternoon musicale featuring the most divine violinist, Professor Labojo. And I was like, huh.
And
And
she's,
then-
so she's rich, so she didn't do it either,
You're very rich. Yeah, rich people wouldn't have robbed. Rich people never steal. And then she's like, I don't understand my husband. He doesn't appreciate our home life here with the children. As she looks at the poodles. And I was like, wrote a big frowny face. I was like, no, not your children. You're confused. And then she's like, no.
And Nancy's like, oh, her poor husband.
She couldn't be the one.
Aww.
She couldn't have planned a bank heist.
No.
And I was like, or she's just pretending. Anyway.
Or maybe that's like how she is, but she was like, I need more money for my poodles.
Yeah. So then she goes to look for the Dowds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, no, the Dowds are gone.
Mm-hmm.
They're on tour. They're actors.
Oh my God, you never trust actors.
No, right?
No,
Because they're people who pretend they're
They
somebody
pretend they're
else.
something. Yeah, totally.
For a living. They're you could never trust them.
That is shameful.
That's why you never date an actor. You never marry an actor.
No.
She's like, oh, well, these actors are probably not anything to do with anything.
Oh no, she thought them they were pretty suspicious.
Oh,
I thought
okay.
She thought they were. At least I thought they were, and like from my experience, I am Nancy, so
their neighbor knows that the couple are actors, but doesn't know what kind of parts they play. And I was like, porn. They're like, what do you do for a living? They're like, we're actors. And they're like, what kind of parts? And they're like, all kinds.
That's
Oh,
good
I've never met an
assumption.
actor that isn't more than excited to tell me about what part they're playing. Yeah, and Nancy wrote, it seemed unnatural that they would not have told what parts they were playing.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah,
I have that
that's
underlined,
pretty
too.
unnatural. Nancy decides to go home, get her bathing suit, and head for the club. And I was like, don't you have a mystery to solve?
And then she's like, whoa, I'm opening the door, and holy crap, Laura Pendleton is there.
Yeah, Laura Pendleton is there.
Pendleton.
And she's
Disheveled.
and wan.
And scared.
And looks
And
like
helpless.
she looks like the guy who's being kept in the basement at the first illustration, who's gotten out of the basement.
But maybe like with more food in her.
Yeah, I don't know. I always thought that she was like, oh my god, I've been kidnapped for days. But then they're like, she
But it's
seems
only
fine.
been
24
day.
hours, yeah.
Like not even.
She's like the boxcar children. She
Yeah.
thought that the guy was mean and she ran away right away. No questions. I'll go live in the woods instead. And then she says, tell me everything that has happened since I saw you last. And I was like, no, tell me the important things that happened. Don't tell me everything. That's going to take too long. And basically, it seems like the Aborns took Laura to their new house.
Mm-hmm.
Laura got all set up in her bedroom. It went to leave her bedroom. The door was locked from the outside. It was like,
Which
oh.
is weird. I give her that.
Yeah.
That's really fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody locked me in a room, I would probably immediately start freaking out.
Yeah. Yep.
Or
Definitely.
or I would assume I had locked myself in the room on accident.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the brightest. And they're like, oh, and then she like put her ear to the floor and listened.
Mm-hmm. Because she was so unhappy.
Yeah, she's so unhappy.
So after 2 hours.
Just because her parents are dead. They're like, why'd you lock her in a room? She doesn't know anything yet. Now she's going to like think a bunch of stuff is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, whatever, we just got to find those jewels. Because, oh, right. Have we talked about how
Because they
Laura
like
has
already
jewels?
got like a shit ton of bank bonds, right? And then
They
they're
stole all
like,
the-
no, we gotta get the jewels too.
Yeah, but Laura has a bunch of jewels.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, we're going to steal her jewels.
Yep.
And then Nancy's like, wait a second. What if they're jewel thieves? And I'm like, yeah, that's what she just said. That's what she just said, Nancy. They're going to steal her jewels. But it's all a big revelation. I think that actually she thinks they might be thieves multiple times in the book where she's like, what if they're thieves? And you're like, didn't you already figure this out like 30 pages ago? Did I? Yeah, but then when Laura won't give them the jewels, they get really angry at her,
yeah.
which is a big clue. That she's like, I'll just hold on to them tonight, and they freak out.
Flip a shit.
And then the next morning, they're like, hey, breakfast. Like,
They're like, oh, we're cool. We're cool, right?
We're cool.
Yeah, show
Hey.
me those jewels.
why don't you come downstairs and
What's
bring
up?
the jewels with you?
Yeah.
And she doesn't.
Nope.
And then
Because she's smart.
Yeah, she's smart.
Because she got locked in her own room, and she's like, I don't trust you.
No one who locks me in my room gets my jewels. Oh, and then she escapes. She like climbs out of a window and
Mhm.
makes her way down the road and
Rose
gets a
trim or
cab. And
whatever.
I was like, she
Yeah.
had enough cash to like pay a cab and stuff. Then
That,
again,
like as I remember it, Nancy drove like way the fuck out of the way
Mhm.
on a like shit road to get to the Donalds or the
and
neighbors,
and
right?
there's a taxi just cruising around out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Odd.
very odd, but it worked out.
I guess so.
And it's one of those things where, like, if it turned out that Laura was actually the bad guy at the end, that Nancy would be like, yeah, I started thinking about it, and some of her story didn't make any sense. Like, she said she escaped and then got a cab, but where'd she get a cab? Way out by the lake, you know? But no, it doesn't come up. Hey, detectives, I am sitting here with Josh Rapp. He's the Brewhouse Manager at Avery Brewing Company. That's out in Boulder, right?
It is.
And how long have you worked for Avery?
5 years.
5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about Avery Brewing Company.
Okay. Avery Brewing Company, we've been around for 25 years now. So that's, 1993
Okay.
was when it was started. And so in the 90s, craft beer was having a boom that was much smaller than the craft beer boom that's happening right now.
There were like
And-
5 and it was a big deal.
Yeah. And it had its own little bubble that burst, and a lot of breweries from that time went out of business.
Okay.
The story at Avery is that Adam Avery, the owner and founder, with his dad Larry, they were doing pretty well, but that bubble burst and things weren't going so well. They were brewing a lot of popular beers from the 90s, like Milds, a raspberry wheat beer, things like that.
Sure.
Not super interesting, but
but sellable.
Yeah, but Adam kind of realized, hey, the business isn't going that well. I'm just going to brew a beer that I really want to drink.
Okay.
And that beer was called Hog Heaven.
Okay. Yeah.
It is, back then it was an imperial hoppy barley wine. Now we're calling it an imperial red ale, or red IPA, I should say.
Okay. Has it changed at all in recipe?
It hasn't changed at all, actually.
Nice.
It's still a great beer, but it was one of the first beers that just had that big, bitter, dank,
IPA.
Just loads of hops thrown into
Sure.
it. And it was like a 10% beer. And so he's like,
oh boy,
this is my beer. This is what I want to make. And lo and behold, it sold really well and saved the brewery.
Okay.
It's called Hog Heaven because the joke was, oh, well, when pigs fly, people will want to drink this beer and it'll be good. And it saved the brewery. And so that's kind of the rest is history. And we've been around for 25 years now. I think a lot of the breweries that kind of made it out of that little bubble that burst in the 90s have been pretty successful with this new craft beer boom.
Sure, and Avery is definitely one of the most. I mean, if there's one beer, local, brew company that I see the most trucks rolling around Denver and the most, I see them in the most bars and stuff, it's Avery. So what is your favorite beer that you brew?
Actually, it's probably the Kaiser.
Yeah. So that's what I'm drinking right now, and it is absolutely delicious. It's kind of sweet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just delicious. I love it.
Thanks,
I don't have a lot of good wide beer palate, so I will not use all the right words.
No worries. It's actually the first beer that I brewed when I started at Avery, so it has a special place in my heart.
Okay.
But it is technically a Doppelbock. We call it an Imperial Oktoberfest.
Okay, so tell me what any of that means.
Sure. Malty, sweet.
Okay.
It's a German-style lager, so even with all that malt, it's a very clean beer, and we put it out once a year. It is seasonal. Mm-hmm. We actually even skipped last year, so I'm glad that it's back. But,
okay. Why'd you do that? This is so good.
I know. It's been an interesting couple years, actually. It's always been a great beer, but people did not really like it and didn't want to drink it, so we phased it out last year and brought it back this year. Actually lowered the ABV a little bit. It used to be 10%, now it's 8%. And we put it in 6-pack cans, whereas it used to come in a bomber. Okay. So we've been learning a lot. People aren't as into bombers anymore. Now it's all about cans, which we're happy about. Cans are better for beer in every way. So
why is that?
So even if you have a dark glass bottle, sunlight's going to get through. Sure. Sunlight's very bad for beer. And cans don't let any of that through. On top of that, it's cheaper and it's lighter. So it's
that makes sense.
A lot more sustainable. Costs less for us to ship it.
And you can recycle cans.
And you can recycle cans a little easier.
Than bottles, though.
Aluminum is very abundant and cheap, so it's more environmentally conscious. People still want bottles sometimes, but we're phasing most of our beer into cans now.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I enjoy a stiff drink as much as the next guy, but I am much more likely to buy a beer that it's 8 ABV than 10. Because 10, I look at it and I just go, I don't know, I'm going to get through 1.5 and then I'm going to be like, wow, I'm beer drunk.
It's a commitment, man.
Yeah, you really got to settle down. Well, how did you get started brewing beer in the first place?
Okay, so, I really got started like a lot of people. I started home brewing and really respected the industry. I'd been doing some, corporate jobs and started hanging out with some brewers because long time ago I dated a girl who worked at a liquor store and they sold a lot of craft beer, and I was like, wow, this industry's so cool. They're all helping each other out. They're really open, but it's a little harder to actually get into it. So I kind of started going that way. I ended up working at a bar called the Rack House Pub. It was right outside of Stranahan's Colorado Whiskey back in the day off of Alameda there. And so I was a bartender there and started scrubbing floors next door for the Stranahan's guys, and eventually convinced them to hire me on, and kind of learned most of what I needed from there. Stranahan's is a unique distillery because when they started out, Flying Dog Brewery was brewing all of their wash for them. So when they moved and built their own production facility, they started making their wash exactly like beer, like Flying Dog did. So I essentially learned how to make beer at a whiskey distillery. Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. God, I love Stranahan's.
That's great.
Yeah, wonderful whiskey. What do you like about brewing beer?
I like using my hands, man. And like I said before,
it's hard work.
It is. It's actually not what I thought it was going to be when I started. You know, we're as brewers, we're mostly just janitors.
Yeah.
We clean.
Yep.
And we
Make
clean.
things
and
are
we
sterile.
clean.
Yep.
Then we get to do a little bit of fun stuff and brew a beer and make
And
a
then you
recipe. And then we clean some more.
Yeah.
But I found that I actually have a passion for doing the same thing hundreds or thousands of times and doing it very, very well.
Yeah.
Because that's really what brewing is when you get into... we're not big by any means, but, you know, we make White Rascal really, really well hundreds of times. Well, maybe not hundreds of times a year, but many, many times a year.
Yeah.
And we do it the same every time.
I will say to any of our listeners, if you have, if you've ever had an Avery beer, you have probably had White Rascal.
Yes.
And it's worth having. It's a great beer. It's there. I understand why you guys turn out so much of it. Not like, you know, you don't factory line. I guess you do.
We do.
You factory line it.
We want it to be the biggest Belgian wit beer in the country.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't count Blue Moon because it doesn't use Belgian yeast.
Yeah.
And it's not a wit beer.
Yeah.
But you know, that's our main competition.
Going to start some sort of war on the podcast.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening.
Let's
but great.
do it.
I'm ready for it. Yeah, I always say, so you said you started doing homebrew. I have always said that craft beer to me is a lot like garage bands were in the 90s, like grunge garage bands, where like everybody did it. Most of it was awful.
Yep.
But some of it was really good and like became really popular and people bought it and stuff. So, well, that's how I feel about podcasts now. Like everybody gets one.
Yeah.
Most of them are terrible. Some of them are good and people
Right.
listen to them. So, you know, we just hope you land on the right side of the line.
Not this.
Yeah,
Not this. I mean,
one's-
other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
this
one's
one's
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't listen to it, honestly. I don't know what anyone does. Especially people in Vietnam. As I've asked before, what are you doing? Why are you listening?
Why are you attacking
you
our
have
Vietnam
quite a following.
audience?
Yeah.
Thank them for listening.
Thank you so much for listening, and please email me and let me know why you are. Yeah, like 180 people listened to Jose's episode out of Ho Chi Minh City.
Well, I will say, maybe tangentially, but there are a lot of expats in Vietnam, and
That's
a friend
true.
of mine who used to work at Upslope Brewing Company, Alex Violet,
Okay.
moved to Vietnam and started a craft brewery there, and it was funded by a bunch of American expats who wanted to drink American-style craft beer,
Yeah,
and it's doing very, very well.
I'm sure it is. Yep.
He's recently moved back to the States and started another brewery, but he still technically owns that one in Vietnam. It might be in Ho Chi Minh City.
Okay.
What's it
So-
called? Do you know?
It is called Pasteur Street. So
Okay.
your listeners probably know of it if they're in Vietnam. I think it's a pretty big deal in that country now.
Okay. Well, great. Somebody email me. Tell me about this. That's
Send him some
awesome.
beer.
Yeah, send us some beer.
Or just
Contact
tell us what you think of it.
Yeah, or just tell us what you think of the podcast itself. Okay, well, this episode is a Nancy Drew special episode with our mutual friend Casey.
Nice.
Have you ever read a Hardy Boys book or a Nancy Drew book?
I have read a Hardy Boys book.
Okay.
I think
Do you remember anything about it?
not really. It was when I was very young. I think
Yeah.
my grandparents probably had them on their bookshelf.
Absolutely.
And I've always been a big reader, so I was kind of reading anything. But I'm sure I read like 3 or 4 of them until I was kind of like, these are all kind of the same
They're
book.
the same. Yeah.
Uh,
Things
but,
explode at different times.
Yep.
The boys get separated about once a book. Yeah.
Do you have any even trace memories of?
I remember it being very Scooby-Doo like.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of I always imagine it if they walk into a library and there's one book that's like a different color than all the other books, and you're like, they're going to touch that book.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing, and that's the only book that they interact with.
Make sure to listen to part 2 of the Nancy Drew Drink Book number 3, The Bungalow Mystery, and listen to the second half of my interview with Joshua Rapp from Avery Brewing Company. See you soon, detectives!